and welcome to our webcast with Cooper Levenson attorneys Alexander Rigdon and Cynthia Grob from the Family Law Group. Today we have Amy Rudley, a fellow Cooper Levenson lawyer. Amy, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, thanks. So today Lexi and Cynthia will be asking you some questions, and I'll pass it over to Cynthia first.
Hi, Amy. It's nice to see your face.
Hey, you too.
All right. So Lexi and I have clients who have alimony and support obligations and other financial obligations as a result of court orders. And under COVID, they haven't necessarily been able to modify those orders. So if an employer cuts an employee's hours due to COVID-19, can the employee apply for unemployment benefits, or how does it work for those folks who might be experiencing kind of layoffs or furloughs as a result of COVID-19?
Okay, so if the employee's hours are cut and they're an hourly employee, so they're getting paid an hourly rate as opposed to salary, then yes, absolutely, they can and they should apply for unemployment because that could close the gap there in the loss of hours. If they were a salaried employee and their pay was cut, that's a different answer. They wouldn't normally be available or eligible for unemployment because they're still full-time employed. And so they're not really looking for work or available for other work. So it depends on how they're getting paid and really their status under some other statutes.
Okay.
So does that mean that if you're working full time, but the employer says, sorry, we're cutting your salary by 10% because we can't afford this, you can't go make that up elsewhere. You're just you either stay in the job and suck it up or you quit and go elsewhere, right? You can't apply for unemployment to cover the gap.
Yeah, so when people say you can't apply for unemployment, you always can try. Yeah. I don't recommend trying when we know you're not going to get it, because every once in a while you'll get it accidentally and the state will come after you later once they realize they made an error. So if you're full-time employed and your pay is cut, under normal circumstances, you wouldn't be eligible for unemployment. And then someone asked this question of the Department of Labor Commissioner just to make sure it didn't change because of COVID, and they issued clarification that it does not change. So still, pay cut does not equal unemployment for a full-time worker who's receiving salary, but hours cut does.
Okay. Good to know.
All right, so we know that there are a lot of people who are very afraid to really do anything, even be outside without a mask. And so it sort of begs the question that, what if an employee doesn't want to return to work because they're fearful about contracting the virus, but the office is cleared to be open by the governor? How does that play into, does the employer have to keep allowing them to work from home, or what happens in that instance?
So assuming they are the type of employee that's ready to come back to work by virtue of the law, so everything else is in place, the proper PPE is in place at work, the employer's done everything they need to do on their end, and they're permitted to open, then the employee does not have the right to refuse to come back to work. So the employer could take disciplinary action or whatever they see fit in that situation. They always have the ability to give employees leave just gratuitously if they wanted to, but they don't have to. If an employee refuses to come back to work just because they're nervous, not because they have a health condition, then that's a shame, but that's not the law.
And we have clients who are, and even people in intact families are struggling with the homeschooling, and they're trying to work, they're trying to homeschool. It's also hard for the clients that are co-parenting and they're either doing it completely on their own, or they're both, each co-parent is having to do it on their own day. And so if a child can't go back to school yet, but a workplace says you got to come in, what is an employee's option there?
Right, especially with summer camp closures and childcare options kind of evaporating under COVID right now for workers. What are their options?
So right now, they have the ability to take the 2 weeks of leave under the CARES Act, and that was implemented federally. You can take 2 weeks of leave because your children have been displaced from their normal schooling or their normal care. What happens after those 2 weeks, and as we come into summer and we still have so many individuals who are working from home, and just like I have 2 daughters, they're home, and so am I. And so what will happen to fill that gap for people who otherwise would have had care? I haven't heard anything from the government on that yet. So we'll have to stay tuned. But in the meantime, we know that employees can take the 2 weeks of leave. And because it's the end of May now, that might get them to the end of the school year. So at least they could focus on helping with the schoolwork until then.
It's a tough situation for everybody.
Yeah, really rough.
It really is.
Definitely. Well, thank you, Amy. Those questions I know will help a lot of people get some clarity. We like to end on a fun question. This one's kind of bittersweet, but what summer plans did you have to change because of COVID?
Oh, yeah, that one's not very fun. So unfortunately, we had a very big and exciting trip planned. In August, we were flying into Zurich, and then we were going to stay a couple days in Zurich, and then we were going to Lake Como and Milan. And so we canceled that right away because Milan was pretty quickly a hot spot. We're looking for something more low key to do, but we're lucky enough to have a pool, and I can almost see it from here. And so I'm sure we'll just be hanging by the pool instead.
Nice. So for me,
What about you guys?
I too was going to be traveling overseas. I had a trip planned in May for Thailand that also was canceled already. I plan to revisit those wishes at some point in the future, but I was fortunate enough that my family I was visiting in Thailand are now back in the US for a month or 2. So I'm just enjoying time home around home, hiking and kayaking and stuff here instead of going on a fabulous trip to a foreign country.
Gosh, those plans pale in comparison to mine. I was going to go to San Diego for 6 days in June. A really, really nice resort, and that has been canceled. But I'm supposed to go to Iceland in October for a long weekend because it's the closest European country to here. So I'm hoping that we're allowed to do that, or it's okay to do that at that point, because I don't want to have to cancel that also.
I know, definitely. Yeah, we had definitely a couple of small trips that got postponed, but we were lucky to get Mexico in right before the pandemic. So I feel like that gave us a little vacation to hold us over until everything resumes normally. Well, thank you, Amy, so much for joining us and answering some questions. We really appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Yes,
And we-
thanks.